most of the facts that I get from both books, in writing both books, were from trial transcripts, which are a gold mine if you have a trial transcript, and from newspaper reports. Now, I usually wait until I have two or even three confirmations from newspapers that this is what happened. There was a time where newspapers would make up the story if it didn't to fit their interests, and they'd play fast and loose with the facts. And you can see that as you delve into newspapers of the 20s and before. But so I try to be very careful not to stray from what is fact and not to get into fiction. I'm going to jump to part 1, called In His Defense, chapter 13. Here again is a picture of the trial, the courtroom, the people who were there, and what was going on. You get the idea the temperature was hot, like it is in this room. But they packed 200 or more people into a courtroom that probably should only have had 100 inside. But and so it was in the summertime that the trial took place. By the way, I just might mention here that Snook was arrested and put into jail and tried and convicted and executed all in 260 days. You won't get that today from trials, especially capital murder trials. So in his defense, part 1, this is where Snook takes the stand in his own defense for the first time. I do, a stoic Snook calmly responded after criminal court clerk Joseph Palmer completed the tell the truth oath. The doors of justice were about to open wide on details surrounding what New York journalist James Kilgallen described as one of the most sordid murder trials ever staged in an American courtroom. For breathless spectators who attended the trial and thousands of newspaper readers who passionately followed every word of it, this was what they had been itching for, the dirt, from the mouth of the accused. Little did the newspaper readers know, however, that they would never read the steamy side of Snook's testimony. Editors found it to be beyond the realm of public decency. The gallery began arriving at midnight Tuesday, lining up for a coveted seat in the third floor courtroom. Mrs. Leela Shelton brought a camp chair, coffee in a thermos, and a sandwich in a cracker box to ease the long wait, but she rarely had a chance to sit down. The crowd standing around her was too dense. She had brought a friend, but when the courthouse door opened, the two women became separated in the stampede. The crowd, quote, galloped up 2 flights of stairs like mountain goats, close quote, a Columbus Citizen reporter wrote. Mrs. Shelton found a seat inside, but her friend did not. Harry Gilmore, a railroad brakeman from St. Louis, secured a seat. His attendants testified to the widespread interest in the case. I just had to come to see for myself, he said, because I heard too much about it. Sidney Taylor of Hot Springs, Arkansas, and Hubert Denlinger of Philadelphia were also among those who attended from afar. Theora's parents, Dr. and Mrs. Melver Hicks, Theora was the victim. Theora's parents, Dr. and Mrs. Melvin Hicks, read magazines and newspapers in Chester's offices and waited for news of the trial. As Seifert, this was one of Snook's attorney, began his examination of the lanky former professor. Ricketts and Seidel slipped out of the courtroom to grab a smoke, missing Snook's description of his early life in South Lebanon and his subsequent 19 years as an instructor of veterinary medicine at Ohio State University. Seyfried also explored Snook's expertise as a pistol shot, both as a national title holder and as a double Olympic gold medal winner. Then Seyfried popped the question everybody was waiting for. Now, doctor, when was the first time that you ever met Miss Theora Hicks? That really started the steamy side of the trial. It was so steamy that, as I mentioned here, that it could not be published in the daily newspapers. It was never published in the paper. There was a trial transcript, and somebody purloined a copy of it and put it together in parts of it into a little pamphlet, which was sold on the streets of Columbus downtown for 35 cents a copy until the police raided all the newsstands and confiscated the copies. If you want to read it, other than in my book, you can see this little pamphlet in the Columbus Public Library. They have a copy. Again, it would be easy to say something like Snook took the trial and the first day of took the stand in the first day of his trial, and let it go at that. But the fact that all these people were coming from all over the country to hear the testimony and hear the trial, and I have the names of the people thanks to the newspapers who interviewed everybody in sight. It creates the image that I wanted to create, that it was crowded and it was hot and there were a lot of people and they came from afar, and finally Snook gets to take the stand and testify. The trial transcript is, I know there's somebody sitting here who knows where there is a copy. Found out just a few minutes ago, but I found a copy in one of the prosecutors, the family of the prosecutor, Jack Chester. How many people know Jack Chester is an attorney? A couple people. Long time attorney here. Chapter 16 is still on his testimony, and it's called In the Coop. Well, Snook started his attack on his co-ed lover the night she was murdered. He started his attack with a ball-peen hammer in his new Ford coupe. And it became quite a bloody sight. And strangely enough, it's still in town, the car. It's in the hands of a collector. I've seen it. It's been refurbished, but it is the murder car, as it was called. So, Prosecutor Chester is Jack Chester, young prosecutor. Prosecutor Chester had eagerly awaited for this day at court. At the conclusion of his grueling examination of Snook, he was confident that he would have the sharpshooter firmly planted in the electric chair. Among courthouse veterans, however, the betting went 3-1 in favor of Snook escaping Ohio's ultimate penalty. There was open and blatant betting in the hallways of the courthouse as to how the trial would turn out. In the courthouse Friday, the gallery of 300 sweltered before the day ended. A record 9 women would faint from the oppressive heat in the courtroom and the corridor outside. Nevertheless, most who experienced a touch of the vapors insisted on returning to their place in line or their seat in the gallery. Mrs. Catherine Green was not so fortunate, however. While she attended to a stranger who had fainted next to her, a thief made off with her purse. Little tidbits that I love. I forgot to mention when the body was discovered, the coroner came to confirm that the victim was dead, rolled her over in the field so he could see where her wounds were. And her nose was misshapen. And he took his fingers and he straightened out her nose. Which is it kind of amused me. It kind of amused me that fact was in one of the reports of the discovery of the body. Without the trial transcript, I think you could probably put a story together. Of course you could from the newspaper articles, but the trial transcript really is the main thing that brings it to life for me. And because people testify as to what they did and what they saw, and what they said and what others said and so forth. So you can piece together with the newspaper as a background, piece together exactly what happened as this case unfolded. But it didn't take long for the police to arrest Snook. He murdered his victim on Thursday. He was arrested Saturday. And he thought he was so smart that he would never be discovered. Sheer arrogance, really. But he wasn't a stupid man, that's for sure. He was quite bright as a full professor. But when it came to murder, he was a piker.